You scroll, you text, you fill every gap with noise, not because you are happy, but because you are afraid of what happens when the noise stops. And if you are honest with yourself, truly honest, you know exactly what I am talking about. The moment the music goes off, the moment the phone is face down, the moment there is nothing between you and your own thoughts. Something uncomfortable rises up. A restlessness, a low hum of anxiety, a voice you have been avoiding for a long time. Most people never stop long enough to hear that voice. They go their entire lives surrounded by people, stimulation, and distraction, and yet they feel profoundly, painfully alone. Here is the paradox. The people who fear solitude the most are often the loneliest, and the people who have learned to embrace it are among the most grounded, most free, most genuinely connected humans alive. Today we are going to talk about solitude, not as something that happens to you when life gets quiet, but as a deliberate practice, a tool, a forge, the place where everything that is weak in you gets burned away and what remains is something real. Stay with me. This one matters. Part 1. What we got wrong about being alone. From the time you were a child, you were taught that being alone was a problem to solve. Eat alone at school and something is wrong with you. Stay in on a Friday night and you are missing out. Prefer your own company over a crowded room and people start to worry. The message was loud and it was consistent. Aloneness equals failure. Connection equals worth. So you learn to perform, to stay busy, to keep the calendar full, to never let a silence last too long before filling it with something, anything to avoid the discomfort of just being with yourself. But here is what nobody told you. That discomfort is not a signal that something is wrong. It is a signal that something important is waiting. The discomfort of solitude is not emptiness. It is pressure. And pressure, applied consistently, is what creates diamonds. The Stoics understood this at a level most people today have never reached. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth. He was surrounded by advisors, generals, senators, and crowds at all times. And yet he carved out time every single day to be alone with his thoughts, to write, to reflect, to question himself. Not because he was antisocial, but because he knew something that took him years to learn. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, not the crowd, not the noise, the present. Your own mind, right now." That discipline, that daily return to solitude, is what kept him sane while governing an empire. It is what kept his judgment clear while everyone around him was losing perspective. And you need it for the same reason. Not because you are running an empire, but because your life, your inner life, requires the same level of attention and care. Part 2. The noise is not neutral. Let us talk about something nobody in the attention economy wants you to think about. The noise in your life is not accidental. It is engineered. Every notification, every endless scroll, every autoplay video, every outrage cycle designed to keep you clicking, all of it is built by teams of some of the most brilliant engineers alive whose singular goal is to make sure you never, ever have a quiet moment. Because quiet moments are dangerous. For them. In a quiet moment, you might realize you do not actually want the thing they are selling. You might realize that the anxiety you feel is not yours. It was installed. You might start to hear your own thoughts clearly enough to make a real decision about your life. That is the last thing the attention economy wants. Epictetus said, "Seek not the good in external things. Seek it in yourself." That was 2,000 years ago. He had no smartphone, no algorithm, no social media feed, and yet he already understood the fundamental danger of outsourcing your sense of self to the world outside you. Now imagine what he would say today. Every hour you spend reacting to the noise is an hour you are not spending building yourself. Every moment you hand your attention to something designed to drain it, you are paying with the only currency that cannot be earned back. Time, presence, your own mind. This is not a lecture against technology. It is a call to awareness. Because you cannot reclaim what you do not notice you are losing. The first act of building real inner strength is simply this. Notice the noise, name it, and choose, consciously, when you allow it in and when you do not. That choice is the beginning of everything. Part 3. What happens inside the silence? So what actually happens when you stop running from solitude and start sitting in it? At first, it is uncomfortable, sometimes deeply uncomfortable. The mind does not go quiet just because the room does. It speeds up. It replays conversations. It surfaces regrets. It generates anxiety about the future. It throws everything at you. This is normal. This is not a sign that solitude is bad for you. It is a sign that you have been carrying a great deal of unprocessed weight. Think of it like a snow globe. When your life is in constant motion, everything is swirling. The moment you set it down and let it be still, everything that was floating around begins to settle, and for a moment, it looks more chaotic than before. But that is just the settling process. If you can stay in that discomfort without immediately reaching for a distraction, something remarkable begins to happen. The thoughts slow down, the noise inside begins to quiet, and underneath all of that, you start to hear something you may not have heard in years. Your own voice, not the voice of your parents, not the voice of your friends or your critics or your employer or your culture. Your voice, the one that knows what you actually value, what you actually want, what actually matters to you underneath all the layers that have been placed there by everyone else. Carl Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become who you truly are while you are constantly performing for other people. You cannot find your own truth while drowning in other people's noise. Solitude is the space where you stop performing and start discovering. And what you discover there, that is yours. No one can take it from you. No one can argue you out of it. Because it did not come from outside. It came from within. Part 4. The Stoic practice of inner withdrawal. The Stoics had a practice they called the inner citadel. The idea was this: the world is unpredictable. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will change without warning. Health, wealth, reputation, relationships, all of it is subject to forces outside your control. But there is one place, one domain that belongs entirely to you. Your inner world, your thoughts, your responses, your values, your interpretation of what happens. That inner world is the citadel, and it cannot be invaded unless you allow it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is not a passive teaching. It is an active practice. Building that citadel takes work. It takes time in solitude. It takes honest reflection. It takes the willingness to sit with yourself even when sitting with yourself feels unbearable. But every hour you invest in that practice pays compound interest. Because when life hits you hard, and it will, the person who has spent time building their inner citadel does not collapse. They do not fall apart. They do not need someone else to tell them it will be okay. They already know it will be okay because they have built something inside themselves that external chaos cannot reach. That is not wishful thinking. That is a result of practice, and the practice begins in solitude. Part 5. Facing your own shadows. Here is the part that nobody wants to talk about. Solitude is not only peaceful reflection and creative inspiration. Sometimes it is confrontation. When you sit in genuine silence, the things you have been avoiding come forward. The guilt you never processed, the grief you buried under busyness, the fear that you are not enough, the version of yourself that you are not proud of. These things do not surface to destroy you. They surface because they need attention, because they have been waiting for you to finally be still enough to hear them. Jung called this meeting the shadow, the parts of yourself you have pushed into the dark because they were too painful or too inconvenient to face in the light. And here is the truth about shadows. They do not go away when you ignore them. They grow. They influence your behavior from underneath. They drive decisions you cannot explain. They create patterns you keep repeating without understanding why. But when you face them, when you sit in solitude and allow them to emerge without judgment, something shifts. They lose their power, not because you defeated them, but because you finally acknowledged them. You said, "Yes, this is part of me. I am not ashamed of it. I am going to understand it." That is an act of enormous courage. Most people never do it. Most people go their whole lives running from the parts of themselves they are afraid to see. But the person who faces their shadow becomes something rare. They become honest, deeply, uncomfortably, beautifully honest. And that honesty becomes the foundation of every real relationship, every real decision, and every real moment of growth they will ever have. Solitude gives you that, but only if you are brave enough to stay. Part 6. Solitude is not isolation. This is important. Everything we have talked about today is not an argument for cutting yourself off from the world. It is not a case for becoming a hermit or rejecting human connection. It is the opposite. The person who has never spent time alone with themselves, the person who has never developed their inner citadel, who has never faced their shadows, who has never heard their own voice clearly, that person brings their neediness, their unexamined fears, and their desperate hunger for validation into every relationship they have. They do not connect, they cling. They do not love freely. They love conditionally, always with one eye on whether they are being approved of, accepted, needed. But the person who has done the inner work, who has learned to be alone and discovered that it is not something to fear, that person brings something entirely different into their relationships. They bring wholeness, not perfection, wholeness, the kind of presence that says, I am here because I choose to be, not because I need you to complete me. That is the foundation of every deep and lasting connection, and it is built in solitude. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." When you stop needing external things to feel complete, you begin to genuinely appreciate what is actually in front of you. The relationships you have become richer, more honest, more real, because you are no longer using them to fill a void. You are sharing something already full. That is what solitude builds, not isolation, wholeness. And wholeness is the most magnetic thing a human being can embody. Part 7. Building the practice. So how do you actually do this? How do you start using solitude intentionally, especially if the idea of sitting alone with your thoughts feels terrifying? You start small. Do not begin with an hour of silent meditation if your mind is not used to stillness. Begin with 5 minutes. 10. A walk without headphones. A meal without your phone on the table. A morning routine that starts before you check anything. The point is not the duration, the point is the intention. You are choosing, deliberately, to be with yourself without distraction. As you build the habit, you can deepen it. Journaling is one of the most powerful tools for structured solitude. You do not need to write brilliantly. You need to write honestly. Ask yourself questions and let the answers come without editing them for an audience. What am I actually feeling right now? What am I avoiding? What do I know to be true that I have been pretending not to know? What do I want? Not what others want for me, but what I actually want. Write it down, read it back, be honest. Evening reflection, the way Seneca practiced it, is another anchor. Before you sleep, give yourself 5 minutes of honest review. What did I do today that I am proud of? Where did I fall short of my own values? What do I want to do differently tomorrow? Not to punish yourself, to learn, to close the loop, to carry less unresolved tension into the next day. These practices are not complicated, but they require consistency. They require you to choose them over and over again, especially on the days when you do not feel like it, especially on the days when the phone is calling you and the noise feels safer than the quiet. On those days, the choice to be still is the most powerful choice you can make. Closing. You started this video running from something, maybe not physically, but internally. The way most of us run, filling the silence, staying busy, keeping the noise at a level that makes the uncomfortable thoughts hard to hear. I understand that. It is human. It is almost universal. But here is what I want you to take away today. The silence is not your enemy. It never was. The silence is the space where you find out who you actually are underneath everything that has been placed on top of you. The expectations, the conditioning, the fear of judgment, the need for approval. Strip all of that away and what is left? That is you, the real you. The one that has been waiting patiently for you to stop running long enough to say hello. The Stoics built their strength in that silence. The greatest thinkers in human history found their clarity there. The most grounded, most free, most genuinely powerful people you have ever met draw from that same well. And it is available to you, right now, tonight. In the next 10 minutes if you choose it. You do not need permission. You do not need the right circumstances. You do not need to wait until life calms down. Life will never calm down on its own. You have to create the calm, deliberately, consistently, every single day. Stop running from the quiet. Walk toward it. Because in that silence, you are not going to find emptiness. You are going to find yourself. And that discovery, that moment of coming home to who you truly are, is the beginning of a life that actually feels like yours. That is the silent edge. The advantage that nobody talks about. The strength built in the spaces between noise. Use it. If this video spoke to something real in you, leave a comment below. Write, I am choosing the silence, because this path is better walked knowing others are on it too. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week there is more content like this for people who are done with the surface and ready to go deeper. Until next time, stay still, stay strong.